or went through college and sports that helped shape and mold a lot of that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's just started young for you and I think that it's okay.
We were forced to grow up.
Yeah, and it became part of us.
But I grew up. You're still immature.
Well, I closed, but you don't. So my numbers are big. Doug's are small. Doug's great at stuff. He's definitely good.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
18 months, 19. Oh, we're on almost 2 years, but we'll get there. Hey guys, welcome to the Never in Reverse podcast. A show that's just taking life stories and always moving forward one step ahead of another. Trying not to look backwards and just always looking at the positive things in front of us. I'm your host, Jeremy Axel, with my co-host, Doug Cox. We're going to talk a little bit about us. I was born and raised in a small town in southern Oregon. Two sisters, a mother and dad, that they all still live in that area. I currently now reside in the great state of Colorado in Denver. I have two wonderful children, Levi and Sterling, and a beautiful wife, Jessica. Together as a family, we just really enjoy this abundance of nature and the great outdoors. So I'm going to let Doug Cox, my co-host, go ahead and take over from here and introduce himself. Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, appreciate it. Much the same, pretty much born and raised here in Central Oregon. I wife, 4 kids, ages from 15 to 7. My wife, she keeps this house in order. I mean, hats off to her. No, I'm lucky enough, my folks live here, my brother, his family, his kids. So, much the same like you, Jeremy. I mean, we live and play outside as much as we can. I mean, we're fortunate enough to have a really nice playground here and a lot to offer in Central Oregon. But, no, I appreciate it. No, thanks for introducing me there.
Yeah, no problem. So, Doug, an interesting topic that we've been really discussing internally is just surrounding the topic of grit.
Grit, true grit. I feel John Wayne in this right now.
Yeah, I know you might be John Wayne, dude. When you're finally getting out of the rack by 10, I don't know who you are half the time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My sleeves are always rolled up and ready for the day, bud. Don't you worry about it.
We call him Half Day Ray.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah. It's like a Christmas present, guys. You don't know what you're gonna unwrap every day with Doug.
Oh, geez, you are something else. I could say the same about you, but we'll save some comedy for later.
Yeah. The problem is I'm usually up by 4 when Doug's toes are twinkling in the sheet. So
well, hey, you need your sleep, you need your rest. Got to get that too.
So Doug, let's jump on that topic for the users. Grit, right?
Grit.
I think that the baseline behind that has such a big meaning for you and me. I think that there's just a level of depth inside of us that it goes so deep and wide that I think we could be on this topic for hours, probably longer days or weeks.
That John Wayne reference there. I mean, it's kind of this, you got to be just tough, stern, ready to embrace any challenge. Just failure's not part of your DNA, right? I mean, it's grit is, and in my mind, it's in many facets of ways that, you embrace challenge and you take it head on, right? Does that make sense? I mean, it's because life's not easy. I mean, every day has its challenges. And I mean, especially in the, in the workplace, I mean, it's not a perfect world. It's not always candy canes and rainbows. It's not, and I mean, at home, same thing. I mean, kids have challenges and then you try to educate them, but you got to be that pillar, right? And you got to have grit and you've got to have determination to take these challenges that you're faced with in life head on.
Grit is so deep and it has a different meaning for every person, right? There's every story that's in there. I mean, if you were to wake up tomorrow, what internally for you is the most important side of grit? For you to wake up and face the day looking forward, what does that look like for you?
We hold ourselves to high standards, right? We do. I mean, not only at work, in our careers, but also at home. It's when you're a father, when you're a husband, there's a lot of requirement for you to be the pillar, to be the example and support for your wife, your kids. And you got to, for me, it's waking up and embracing the day, knowing, you know what, it's not going to be a smooth ride all day long. There's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be potholes, and you got to work through them. You got to go over them, figure it out, and be tough and be determined. But, and I know that's pretty bold, but at the end of the day, it's not it's not easy, and it's just trying to figure out how to navigate and embrace those challenges, work them out, and look in the rear view mirror and go, got through that.
Yeah, I think that's I think, I was actually just talking to a mentor of mine, and just talking about some really big transitional thing that happened in my life, actually based off of everything we're doing here, plus my marriage. And when I had a couple kids, when I had a couple kids, I'll tell you what, I became ultra focused on things I was really good at, because it really exposed me as a person. And my marriage wasn't, I would say, was unhealthy. I wasn't presenting myself as a sound human. I was really good at building a business and really, sacrificing my family to focus on things that I was great at, because the pain in the focus of me, of what I need to actually have grit to get through, was getting neglected. And what I mean by that is, like, I had to dive so deep within myself to focus in on how to be the most present person I could be for my family. And it took a lot of things that were very, I'd say they're probably personal, that I need to kind of keep out of this. But it's just, I had to have some grit to really go focus on me, and what and take myself out of what people perceived as being great, because I was being great in the professional side of my life, but not focused in on the personal side. So for the grit in that, man, I really had to take some very critical feedback from my wife.
Because you got to leave fuel in the tank for them too, right? I mean, that's a hard part. After, not to cut you off, Jeremy, but we grind, and I mean, we're on the phone, a lot throughout the day, and it's hard to walk through that front door, and the kids are excited to see you, and it's like, you got to have that reserve fuel in the tank, because they deserve it too, and and it's hard. I mean, I've got a lot of examples like that too in my prior career, where I was prior to here, but they were getting the fumes, my family was, of what was left in the tank. They weren't, I was coming home empty, right? And that's not fair to them. I mean, you got to find that next gear, right?
Well, and you know what? The one thing I was doing, and I'll be honest with you, like, I was making excuses against facing myself to be a sound father and a sound husband. I was making excuses of what I was good at and why I couldn't show up.
Yeah. An example, the other night, I told my daughter on Sunday that on Wednesday, okay, we'll go to the park and we'll ride your bike.
Yep.
And I was dog tired. And I was like, you know what? I told her I was going to do this. And I don't want to, you don't want to let them down, because you let them down once, you let them down twice, then they know you're never going to come through. And that's, we don't want to set those examples, especially for our kids, that we're not going to fulfill what we promised to them, even though we're empty. But it's tough. You got to find that grit. You got to dig down. You got to give them, what they deserve as well too.
If you step back, like current age, and I was to rewind my tape, and I look at what grit means to me, I'll tell you what, grit to me is so much deeper than what everyone can visually see. It literally is one-on-one in the mirror for me. And if I look at myself and truly pay attention to both the outside and the inside of me, what grit to me is like finding this perfect humility and humble balance at that moment to find space in a loving and or grinding way where I need to show up to get to that next side with my family, or start loving myself deeper than I ever thought I could, because I need a moment of space that isn't that, right? Like Doug, you know me, like I will get in and you won't beat me.
The only time you can be beat is 8 o'clock at night when you're out of gas and that head hits a pillow and you're out.
Yeah, but I mean, I also want like that moment. Like I was born that, like I was meant to be, I wouldn't say I was meant to be, but I was forced to be full of grit. Like I didn't have a choice. I had a crazy childhood. Like there was not an option. I was here to survive. Like, and I had to figure this out when I was 3 years old. Like, from an emotional to physical to hopefully eating. Right? Like, it wasn't an option. I was either going to figure this out or I was not. And it's carried its way with me, good and bad. Right? Like, there's parts of that are phenomenal.
We're determined to, live a successful life because we knew, and much the same. I mean, broken home. I mean, by the time I was 4, and my dad was 20. No, my dad was 22 at the time. My mom was 20 because my folks had me when they were 16 and 18, and then my brother then divorced, and it was tough. But you still have these mental pictures of those moments in time at a young age of the challenges and the struggles and the emotions, and it's like, I'm determined not to relive that nightmare, right? I mean, and it's tough.
I would say like those are key things that put layers of grit that, I don't think you can really understand and connect with until you get into your late 30s and 40s, where you truly know when you sit down, you know what that seat is, meaning like, yourself well enough, right? And I'm still learning about myself.
Yeah.
I think I've faced a lot of, grit in different ways, and then I hid behind my success and where I was going, and all these different things that allowed me to kind of shelter the pain. And I started realizing, man, I'm focusing on the things that I'm great at. It's going to take grit for me to go step backwards, look at it from a perspective that is probably healthier from how others might perceive me, but I don't want to face it, and go sit in those moments. And that's the thing for me, is like the mirror, right? Like the mirror is a powerful, powerful thing. If you stop, not just doing your hair and brushing your teeth, just look at it.
Are you flexing in the mirror? Or
yeah. I mean,
what are you doing?
Well, I mean,
trying to find those abs?
those biceps are a little large, guys.
Oh,
but no, I'm saying, like, just if you take a moment and you really do, and you pay attention to yourself outside of our busy minds, and you just look at yourself and you really focusing on, Doug, like you're saying, like, am I showing up for my family? Am I showing up for myself? You can't truly show up for anyone else unless you can show up for yourself. And I'm really starting to learn that today. Like, hey, man, I need to take care of me first before I can be the best version outside of this. Otherwise, there's going to be breadcrumbs everywhere with me having a bunch of grit to get through it. But there's going to be
unfulfilled buckets. Yeah, broken pieces, right? Like this bucket over here might be doing well, but if I don't start spreading the wealth of me and what my grit is learned to do, mine was perseverance through financial success, being, making sure I provided for my home. Well, that's only one small bucket of life. That's one element of it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And of course you want to keep a focus on those things, but there's so many other elements that if you're not careful, you take away, right?
I've done that.
To where I've done it too. I mean, we're human, right? We make mistakes and sacrifice, and it's tough. Some of my favorite time to like self-reflect, like you mentioned, looking in the mirror and just looking at yourself. I love just, if I'm, our family's got a place out in Eastern Oregon, and it's about an hour and 45 minutes. And there's times I'll just drive and turn the radio off, and I'll just think back and reflect. And almost every time I find this self-gratitude of like fulfillment, like I'm doing the right things. Or there's times that I go, I need to be better at this, and I'm doing this wrong. I need to give some time and attention here, for the family or the kids, or other things at work that need deeper attention and input. It's...
Yeah, but yourself, but dude, one thing that your wife called you out on is yourself. Like that, like you and I pour into a lot of things that sometimes have nothing. I think what we're unfulfilled. Like we think we're doing exactly what we need to be doing. When your wife's like, Doug, go do something for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, we make excuses. You started to actually do that the other day. It's like, and she called you out. Like, good for her.
Yeah, because she knows we're hustling, and she knows our lives are busy with the kids and sports and activities, and it's hard to just take a moment and catch your breath sometimes. But you got to find that window and that moment in time, A, for yourself, or B, to take that window and opportunity to give something to maybe your friends, right? And I'm really guilty of that right now. I haven't taken time to, kindle my relationships or build my relationships with just my network of friends then again too, because we're busy, and I enjoy it. I love watching my kids compete in sports, and I love that, get done here and there's time for the second shift.
It's a lot. It's game on. But I think like one thing that we both need to get better at is like taking these moments and just the reality of life and understanding that it does need to include ourselves. Like I need to, I tell myself like, hey, I love myself, but it's a very quick transactional thought. Like if you really, and that's one thing I've been really trying to focus on is like, how do I really engage within myself first?
What have been kind of your practices to avoid these failures, right? Like, or these setbacks or these disappointments?
Yeah, and I think what we need to take from here is like, after break, we'll get back into this and just talk about not allowing us to accept failure in any part of life and what grit interrelates to these moments and how that kind of is part of who you and I are and actually our culture. So I think after break, let's dive into that a little bit and just kind of explore, some topics around that. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Never in Reverse. We appreciate it. Doug just got done taking a nap, so
a nap. Easy there. During break, what'd you do? Did you go get some decaf?
Oh, buddy, I got my makeup on. We're ready to roll.
Yeah, did you get some decaf? Roger Rabbit here. He runs on coffee.
Hey, full on let it over here.
He's like the Energizer Bunny. You just hope that battery runs out. But it never does.
I'm fully leaded, bud.
Okay.
Fully
there
leaded.
We go.
No, so let's dive back into this, Doug. We left the first part of this before break. It's around grit, right? And we're going to transition that kind of whole topic into that failure in our world and the culture is not an option in our life. The perspective of our day-to-day life in general. And Doug, one thing you said back there is just, as a kid, the inability to not allow grit. I mean, grit became us, right? Like it was in you. And that grit it gives kind of a foundational side of what we do to not allow failure I would say failure is always, it's not an option. It's going to happen. However, twisting that with grit, like talk about your childhood and the moment, like where you felt like grit and failure work together and have kind of become a staple in your life.
God, I mean, there's many examples, but the biggest challenge for me in my young adolescence, young kid was, my parents' divorce right before my 5th birthday. My dad was in the military. Make a long story short, my dad gets injured. He gets hit by a drunk driver when he was in flight school, when he was in the military with Coast Guard. So comes home, rehabs. Well, then my father goes into wood products. Well, in the late 80s, wood products was in the Northwest was on a decline because of the spotted owl. So my dad was constantly chasing his career. So at that point, I mean, our bags were always packed because my dad was trying to make bounces to make, runs up the ladder in his career. So by the time my brother and I went back and counted this here a while back, but by the time I was 18, I had moved 18 different times. I had gone to, I think it was 7 or 8 different elementary schools from kindergarten through 5th grade. I mean, we moved. So the challenge in that was I was always the new kid. I was always the new kid coming in at the beginning of the school year or the middle or the end of the school year. And as a child, you know how it is. I mean, fortunate enough, now my kids, I mean, they're going through grade school together. They're going through junior high together.
Yeah, you had to prove yourself every single time.
Every time. Had to make friends again. Had to make friends again.
But
Or
good
then-
thing, like you had to be agile. That took some skills, though, man. You got to you became a chameleon. You had to.
Well, that's why I'm a great salesperson.
Yeah, I mean, numbers don't lie, Doug. We're waiting for the goose eggs, guys. They're rough. Doug's used to them.
Oh, selling's like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you're a bum. That's right. Shaving, Jeremy.
Hey, Doug doesn't know how
How's
to put
that
anything
razor?
after the decimal yet. He's still trying to figure that out.
Come on now.
So,
but no, it back to that. Yeah, it did. It did. It shaped me, to be a chameleon, to make friends, to change colors, to adapt, right? And as hard as it was, and I hated it as a kid, but I look back on it, and I mean, it really has shaped and molded me and helped me with my success in my career.
absolutely.
It has, but
Yeah, it wasn't a candy cane every day, dude. It wasn't like a lollipop. You're waking up in this beautiful comfort zone, right? It's like, man, the next day your dad could be ready to pack his bags, and at some point you're like, what's next?
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of like you and your career, dude. This is your 18th job. So
No. I think, all in all, since college, I think this is my fourth.
Yeah. Best decision he's made so far.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know about that. I might need a shrink working for you or working with you. Gosh.
No, but I mean, I think, Doug, let's keep exploring down that, and so let's say that grit and the ability to never allow failure to become part of you. It's going to happen, right? Like there's letdowns, we fail all the time. What does it mean to staple those two together, though? Like, tell me what that, like, transitional things that have happened in your life and career where you like, man, those things, they level, like, the level up of that. Like, what has it done when you've made these perception of failure, right? Like, that's perceptions.
Right. A lot of it's preparation, right? I think you and I learned a lot of that, playing college football together. Every week you're preparing for that next team, right? Every day you try to prepare yourself as much as you can for the day's challenge or the week's challenge. I think a lot of it comes down to preparation to limit failure. And I know that's pretty bold, but it's how we try to structure things and stay organized in our busy lives to be as efficient, consistent, to the best of our abilities. Now, are there going to be cracks in the road, or are there going to be, areas where things fall through and we don't fulfill that? Yes, it's not a perfect world. There's going to be mistakes, but it's how you limit those, right? It's how you limit those failures, or you're able to mitigate those, those challenges or those failures in a better fashion, and it's like I mentioned earlier, before the break, it's, even with my kids, it's after a long day, of on the phone, I'm out of words, but it's like, I've got to ask them the simplest thing. How was your day at school today? How was it? I got to take interest in them. I got to have them, oh, Dad, it was awesome today. We did this, we did that. Or I had a bad day. Why'd you have a bad day? But it's showing up and being a part of it.
And I think I gotta, Doug, just to flip that back, I'll give you quick examples of some things. Since you're hogging the mic, you're pretty good at that. Doug's not real good on transitions quite yet, so we're getting.
Well, you're very difficult to get words in when you've had about 3 cups of coffee. I can never get a word in. Go ahead.
It's no. So I think just because this topic, I could talk on this for a long time, but I remember a time my father left. When I was about,
you were young, right?
3.5, 4 years old. He was I was in a very highly abusive, and not physical environment. It's somewhat physical, but I'd say emotionally. It was not a healthy.
Verbally, I mean, like, did they just talk down on you guys, condescending, or was it wasn't a love, nurturing?
It was a lot of everything. I think there was so much of it going on. Yeah. So I think in general though, like there's a core moment that I remember, like that I think I had to tell myself, like, it's you versus the world. And I don't think I was like young. I was just so young, but and from that point onward, failure and grit, like I knew I didn't want to be poor because I grew up.
Well, you were
poor, so
forced into it.
Right? Dude, it wasn't an option. Like I knew that. I was going to be a stud athlete because that was my safe zone. That's where
mine too. That was my gateway.
Yeah, I could feel like that was my crutch, dude. That was like my alcoholic high. It was a moment that I could be. I guess I could release anger.
It's where you could take your emotion out on somebody across from you. Because we both played defense. So, I mean, we were the hammer, they were the nail.
I could be okay with it, right? So like, but the grit to get in life, like I wasn't, you and I weren't supposed to be who we are. Like we grew up in a way that wasn't, it was TV dinners, canned corn or macaroni and cheese, dude, with some hot dogs in it that came from who knows where the hell it came from. And here it is. And I'm not joking. I remember sitting at my table with my sister refusing to eat because I wasn't going to eat that shit. And we had laughed for hours, but my mom couldn't afford anything else. And the leveling up of those decisions, I remember it vividly. And her and I would be staring at each other. And we'd giggle for hours, not wanting to leave because I wasn't going to eat it. But the grit, dude, to get to that through those moments and protect myself in a way, and knowing that where my safe outlets were to be in a controlled environment that were going to allow me to kind of expose myself to more positivity and success. And but sports allowed those outlets
where you could control things. Then again, too, like you go onto the football field. I want to be the better athlete. I can be that, and you can work toward those things. We're at home, in that environment, you have to kind of confine, which. Because they're your parents. You're supposed to do what you're told. That's what we're taught as kids. And if they tell you to eat it, you eat it. Where you go out on the football field, it's like, I can be
100%.
And that's tough.
And I think just, taking that stuff and the sacrificial moments that roll back to grit and failure, that goes into the next topic. It's like sacrifices that had to be made. I look back to my mom and how I was raised and the sacrifices of her life to the best of her ability, right? Like I can't hold her to my own standards. But rolling back to the sacrificial things that occur and the big transitional moments in my life, I had so much grit and depth to not wanting to fail that the sacrificial things became almost like I didn't even care. It was just part of who I was going to do, the hardest thing possible or be the best for that moment.
You were a pretty independent person when I first met you, when we were, 19, 20 years old and we went to junior college. I mean, you were a very independent person. I mean, it wasn't, there were times like I'd go home on the weekends and hang out with my folks, right? And go see them. Oh no, not you. Nope. You always, stayed behind. I mean, you were a pretty, in what I remember, even at that age and that time, and home wasn't far for you. Home was like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, dude, I'll tell you what happened. I went and played college baseball my first semester down in Southern California.
Right. Yeah.
And I ended up coming home and assuming that
you got homesick.
Yeah. You thought you got homesick. And then you went back just assuming like, and I'll tell you what, that first 6 months for me in college is like this.
You wanted those moment. TV dinners again. That's how that cafeteria food was wearing you out. You're going back for the Hungry Man.
Dude, I went back to the Hungry Man for about an hour, and I knew the moment that I walked into that
environment,
the environment that was it. Just again, it was what it was, right? And my expectations were such a different. I was growing into trying to become a man or whatever you want to call that.
Well, you probably knew you wanted more at that point.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I went home and I'm like, oh no, I am not doing this again. I mean, but the sacrifice for me was like, it became, I almost became self-sacrificing, similar to you. Is like, you sacrifice the move, you sacrifice this, and all along, there could have been a lot of things that were layered outside of it, but the sacrificing of grit and the ability to not allow failure was so ingrained. It's like this unified body for me is like, man, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to do whatever it takes with grit. And I'm going to do that's when no one's looking, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't see inside of me that happen that are always going to happen no matter what. Right. Like,
but it's those day-to-day challenges, and even as a young, student athlete, and it's, you've got this paper to write, you've only got X amount of dollars, for the week or the month in food. You still got to pay, if you're living outside the dorms and you don't have a meal plan. I mean, it's the day-to-day challenges at a young age, and you got to figure out where you make your sacrifices or where you got to roll your sleeves up. Like when we were in college, when we went to Concordia, we had jobs. I worked while I played football.
Yep.
I would leave practice on Thursday and I would go work until 2-3 in the morning on Thursday nights because I needed the money. I needed the money to eat. I needed the money to live. I needed the money to, and that's just knowing that as tough as it is, I got to have grit. I got to roll up my sleeves. I got to make this work. Oh, and by the way, I got that essay due tomorrow.
Yep.
And
but
I
there's
think
no
a lot
excuses
of it is
inside of that. Like,
no,
I remember some guys that we just in my whole life, I watch. You watch from a perspective where that isn't part of them. That it was an easy street. Mom and dad were there. It was a fluffy blanket, man. Their checkbook was never ending. I remember, and I look at those people, and when things get hard, they can't get through it. The sacrifices that are required to get to the next side of something great is not possible because of grit and the inability to face sacrificial moments to succeed and push through that. Like they all work beautifully together, right? Like, and not saying that it's perfect, right? Because sometimes I'm over the top. Like and
I always think back of, what I've gone through life that has helped shape and mold who I am. Not perfect. There's still a lot of improvement, but
yep.
It's handling these day-to-day challenges. But again, it's taking care of the small things because the big things take care of themselves, right? I mean, it's a micro focus. You micro focus and take care of these day-to-day things to where they just don't gravitate and elevate, and it's a lot of it is in, I went through some sales training here, for an organization that I work for here, probably 10, 12 years ago. Maybe
what did they teach
you?
you? Because I'm still waiting because that goose egg, buddy, is looking a little big.
It was some great sales training, and you should actually be a good time for you to engage. I still have the book.
Did they show you how to close? Because I'm still trying to...
ABC, always be closing. But no, it came down to time blocking and structure, right?
Yeah.
And I always, every time I kind of start to get off the rails, I try to keep that in perspective. I'm not great at it. I mean, as much as I can, especially in a busy life, with kids and everything else, but it's where I can keep things in, time periods and segments through the days of the week. My wife is kind of old fashioned. Most people have Google calendars that put all their, their weekly, and they share it, right? No, not my wife. She handwrites it on a calendar that's hanging on the fridge.
Yeah.
And I always go, Linz, what's my marching orders after work today? Right? Where am I going with the kids? But again, it just comes down to, structuring those, those things of just simply dropping the kids off for practice, or we got a game, or we got this, and just your busy work schedule, much the same. So when I come in, I'm prepared for the next day.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of things that we faced, or went through college and sports, and that helped shape and mold a lot of that.
Man, and
well, for me.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's just, it started young for you and I think that, it's okay.
We were forced to grow up.
Yeah, and it became part of us. But
I grew up. You're still immature.
Well, I closed, but you don't. So my numbers are big. Doug's are small. Doug's great at stuff. He's definitely good.
Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay.
18 months, 19. Oh, we're on almost 2 years, but we'll get there. No. So, anyways, but I think the biggest thing is that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to have failure moments. And we fail all the time. There's things where I don't have the grit like to get through something, but I'll tell you what, every time I get a chance and opportunity to self-reflect, or you and I can persevere, we do not drag dead weight. We're not going to drag moments of failure through this. It's like the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror. It's 100%. Always going to be. What's in front of us is so much bigger than what occurred or what's behind us. And I had to actually do that the other day. I was like, man, I'm about ready to say something, but it's already happened. It was in my marriage, and it was the inability to relinquish control, because I like to be like, I'm always
in control.
Yeah, it's like,
no.
And Yeah, no, but I mean, but to allow that to happen and give myself the space to say, man, it's already happened, number one, so that's not going to change the outcome.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you stop and let that emotion kind of dwindle away. So just having the self accountability emotionally, in which I'm working on right now, is just like, man, have the grit and the understanding that every time I don't do that, I'm failing, right? Like, and reflecting with that moment. So it's okay to not be okay, but it's always like, let's look forward. You know, we're never going to go in reverse. You know, the moment of the reverse, we will reflect on that moment, but we're not going to go back to it.
You know, just to keep this short and sweet, I know we're, you know, probably getting to the
wind it
today,
down.
but you know, a few years ago, you know, I managed the finances in the family.
Yeah.
And I was first class while the money last. If I had 100, I spent 110, right? So,
well, I don't know how you had any money because I still got a goose egg on the board. So.
Oh, geez, easy. Here we go. But no, my wife said, look, we've got to make some financial changes. We've got young kids. We've got a young family. You know, we can't keep living this lifestyle of just at the end of the month, nothing left in the account. You know, so I let go of it. And my wife is very frugal, and I am so appreciative of that. I mean, she can stretch a dollar beyond. You know, and I let go of the family finances. I let her take control. Was that difficult for me? Yes. But did I eventually wake up and realize that I'm not the best person to be controlling this for the better good of our family? And it was tough. It was tough to let go. But this is just one of those examples where when you face these challenges, and you can either work through it or you can use your network, your friends, your family, the people around you to help you, support you in these moments, or to let go. And this was one of those examples where I truthfully, and I'm so grateful I did, I would not be in the position I am today. I would have filed bankruptcy probably years ago. I let
100%.
Let go. And I mean, we still go over our bills and our stuff together, but she has just got us on a great garden path. And it was a challenge, but it was one of those things that I knew I wasn't good at.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Doug. Well, we're coming to a close here, guys, on the Never in Reverse podcast today. We really appreciate you guys joining us and look forward to hopefully you guys join us in the future to learn more about us and kind of explore the avenues and learn more.
Episode 1 in the books, baby.
Episode 1 of the books. And I'm Jeremy, your host, and co-host Doug Cox, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the near future. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks again.
Take care.